George Soros didn't just beat the market. He made billions by understanding one thing most investors ignore. The world doesn't make sense. He's known as the man who broke the Bank of England, from surviving Nazi-occupied Europe to shaking central banks. To making fortunes from market crashes, this isn't just a story about money. It's about how chaos works, and how one man learned to profit from it. But to understand how he did it, we have to go back to where it all began, from chaos. George Soros didn't come from wealth. He grew up in a chaotic Europe, where simply surviving each day was already a victory. Soros was born in 1930 in Budapest, Hungary. His father, Theodore Soros, was no ordinary man. During World War I, he was captured and taken as a prisoner of war to Siberia, refusing to accept his fate. He planned an escape traveling thousands of kilometers under extreme conditions to make his way back to Europe. A life filled with hardship and uncertainty shaped in him a very different philosophy: stay flexible, and always be prepared for the worst-case scenario. When Nazi Germany occupied Hungary in 1944, the Soros family found themselves in one of the most dangerous situations imaginable. Hundreds of thousands of Hungarian Jews were deported to concentration camps. Instead of confronting the threat directly, Theodore Soros chose a bold survival strategy. He split up the family, used false identities, and relied on bribery to blend into society. Even arranged for young George to live with a government official, who posed as his godfather to help him avoid Nazi persecution. One real and often retold story from that time is that Soros accompanied his guardian while inventories were being taken of confiscated Jewish properties. This remains a controversial episode, but Soros later acknowledged that he was simply a child trying to survive a situation far beyond his control. What mattered most was the lesson he drew from it. The world does not operate according to fixed moral rules, especially in times of crisis. The Soros family survived the war not just by luck, but by their ability to adapt quickly to a constantly shifting reality. Theodore didn't teach his son how to become rich. He taught him how to observe, to question, and to act when rules no longer made sense. These early experiences planted the seeds of Soros's later worldview. As he entered the world of finance, he didn't see markets as logical systems that could be fully understood. Instead, he saw them as chaotic environments where human perception itself can distort reality. And perhaps it was during those years of living under false identities, constantly alert and aware, that Soros learned something most investors never truly grasp in an unstable world. The ability to survive and adapt can matter more than always being right. This isn't just the story of a billionaire's childhood. It's the origin of a mindset, one that allows him to read the chaos of global markets. In 1947, at just 17 years old, George Soros left Hungary, a country emerging from war and rapidly falling under Soviet influence. He had no money, no connections, and no safety net. What he did have was a clear determination to escape a system he believed would suffocate individual freedom. London didn't welcome him with opportunity. It welcomed him with hardship. Soros took on whatever work he could find just to survive. Waiting tables, working as a porter, even construction labor. Some days, he ate leftovers just to save money. It was raw, relentless survival. But in the middle of that struggle, a door opened. The London School of Economics. Despite financial limitations, Soros applied and got in. To pay tuition, he continued manual jobs while studying. It was during this time that he encountered Karl Popper, a philosopher whose ideas would profoundly shape his thinking. Popper didn't just teach philosophy, he challenged the very idea of knowledge and truth. One of his core principles was simple yet radical. There is no absolute truth. Every theory can be proven wrong if enough evidence emerges. At first glance, it sounds purely academic. For Soros, it became a lens to understand the world. He didn't just study it, he absorbed it. One of the clearest examples of this influence was how Soros began to view social and economic systems. Instead of seeing them as stable, well-constructed structures, he saw them as inherently flawed systems where human beliefs don't just reflect reality, but actively shape and distort it. While in London, Soros also tried to break into finance. He applied to dozens of banks and investment firms only to be rejected again and again. Very few even responded. Eventually, he landed a job at a small firm. It wasn't glamorous, but it gave him his first real exposure to how markets actually work. This period created a powerful combination. On one side, the harsh real-world experience of a poor immigrant fighting to survive. On the other, the deep philosophical foundation shaped by Karl Popper. Together, they became the basis of how Soros would later approach financial markets, not just through numbers, but through understanding how people think, behave, and influence reality itself. London didn't give Soros immediate success. It gave him something far more valuable: resilience and a different way of thinking. And those two things prepared him for a world where most people were searching for certainty, while he had already accepted that uncertainty is the true nature of reality. If there's one idea that defines George Soros' entire career, it's reflexivity. It's not an easy concept to grasp, but it forms the foundation of how Soros sees markets and why he's been able to profit from things others fail to notice. Traditional finance assumes that markets reflect reality. If a company performs well, its stock goes up. If fundamentals weaken, the stock goes down. In this view, the market is like a mirror, objectively reflecting what's real. Soros doesn't believe that. He argues that the relationship between perception and reality isn't one-way, it's two-way. Here's how it works. People observe the world and form beliefs. Those beliefs influence their actions. And those actions, in aggregate, reshape reality itself. It's a feedback loop. Take real estate as an example. If enough people believe housing prices will rise, they start buying. That increased demand pushes prices up, and as prices rise, the original belief gets reinforced. That's how bubbles form. A clear example is the dot-com bubble of the late 1990s. Investors believed the internet would change everything, and they weren't wrong. But they believed too strongly. Companies with no profits were valued in the billions. Stock prices didn't rise because of real value, but because of expectations. Soros's point is that the issue isn't whether investors are completely right or wrong. It's that perceptions can distort reality, and it's in that gap between reality and belief where opportunity is created. Soros doesn't look for perfect markets. He looks for situations where collective perception has drifted furthest from reality. When a bubble is forming, he may go along with it, riding the trend. But when he senses that the feedback loop is about to break, he reverses. That's why Soros doesn't just make money when markets rise. He often makes even more when they collapse. Reflexivity isn't a trading formula. It's a way of thinking, a way of seeing the world, where there are no absolute certainties. Perception is always imperfect, and those imperfections create the biggest opportunities. This is what sets Soros apart from most investors. While others search for what's right, he searches for what's wrong. And in financial markets where human behavior drives prices, those distortions can be the most powerful force of all. After years of working in finance, George Soros was still a relatively unknown name. He didn't have his own fund, and the capital he had accumulated, about $250,000, was modest by any standard, even at the time. But Soros understood something important. His edge wasn't in how much money he had, it was in how he saw the market. By the late 1960s, most investors approached the market in a conventional way. They analyzed financial statements, tracked company growth, and searched for what they called intrinsic value. Soros saw something different. He began to view the market as a psychological system, one where expectations and human perception could drive prices far beyond what fundamentals alone would justify. In 1969, he made a decision that would change his life. Instead of continuing to work for others, Soros decided to start his own fund. But there was one problem. He didn't have enough capital. $250,000 wasn't nearly enough to make an impact in the financial world. So what did he do? He went out to raise money. Soros approached European investors, people willing to bet on a different perspective. He wasn't selling a get-rich-quick formula. He was selling a way of seeing the market, and some believed him. The result? He raised $6 million to launch the Double Eagle Fund, the predecessor to what would later become the Quantum Fund. This was a turning point. It marked the moment Soros transitioned from someone observing the market to someone capable of influencing it. What's interesting is that at the time, Soros wasn't even fully certain about his own theory. He later admitted that he was investing while simultaneously testing his idea of reflexivity. He later admitted he was investing while simultaneously testing his idea of reflexivity. So in a sense, he wasn't just risking investors' money. He was betting on his understanding of how the world works. It's what made him different. Not because he was always right from the start, not because he had absolute confidence in his theory, but because he was willing to act when his conviction was strong enough. $6 million wasn't just capital. It was leverage, a turning point in both financial power and influence. That's when the game really began. And in this game, Soros wasn't just trying to win. He was trying to prove that his view of the world was right.